From Royal Communications Incorporated, good afternoon. Welcome to King's Newsroom, the 45 minutes news presentation about Liberia, Africa, and the rest of the world. Today is Wednesday, August 13, 2025, and I'm Newton Tokwa presenting stories we're following this afternoon. Veteran Liberian journalist John Colley accuses the United Party government of being insensitive to addressing security crises in rural parts of the country, says the lack of security presence in Butu and other areas poses dangerous threats to the country. Grand Cape Mount County resident George Usman Feka is seeking for life imprisonment for those convicted for illicit drugs with no presidential pardons or executive clemency. Says the current sentencing rule somehow shows weakness in the fight against drugs. Grand Juda County Representative Jeremiah Sokan alarms over poor living conditions of citizens in rural parts of the country. Says many towns and villages remain without electricity, depriving residents of modern livelihood in the 21st century. And away from Liberia, at least 40 people have been killed in an attack on the camp for displaced people in Southern's Western Darfur region, according to an aid group reports. These plus many more. Our news bulletin, the international developments are all packaged. We take a very short break. I will be right back. Outgoing Chief Justice Yana Yu has urged judges, magistrates, and state prosecutors to remain diligent in discharge of their duties. In a farewell message at the August term of court opening, Justice Yu challenged the members of the legal community to always administer justice with evidence without fear or favor. She called on judges, magistrates, prosecutors, defense attorneys, and members of the legal fraternity to uphold the rule of law, resist political interference, and above all, exercise diligence in the adjudication of criminal cases. The outgoing Chief Justice further called on state prosecutors to always take their time in presenting evidence against their defendants, adding that the burden of proof always rests with the prosecutions. Justice Yu reminded state prosecutors to always be in compliance with the Constitution, including judges and magistrates. Grand Cape County resident George is seeking for life imprisonment for those convicted for illicit drugs with no presidential pardons or executive clemency, saying the current sentencing rule somehow show weakness. Judge Usman Feka said that illicit drug pose serious challenge to the social status that is fast eroding the moral fabric of our society. Judge Feka further revealed that Grand Cape Mount County, especially Bow Waterside border crossing point, serves as a major entry route for illicit drug traffickers, claiming that the records show that illicit drugs and substances are arrested every day by agents of the Drug Enforcement Agency. According to our judicial correspondent, Judge Feka wants the drug law to speak with clarity and determination. By this, he said, the law cannot instruct sentencing limits for drug offenders. Judge Feka recommended to national policymakers to amend to the current drug law that will seek life imprisonment for those convicted for importation and destruction. Virtual Liberian journalist and executive director of the Liberal Media Development Initiative, John Colley, has described the United Party government as being insensitive in addressing security crisis in rural parts of the country. Appearing on True Breakfast Show Tuesday, Colley said the Liberian government insensitivity towards security in rural parts of the country, particularly in Butu and surrounding communities such as Buyayo, is a threat to the country. Colley warned that a lack of security presence in areas has created a dangerous vacuum and increasingly being filled by mob justice and lawlessness. He added that the situation is unacceptable, especially given the historical and strategic significance of the area once a flashpoint during the Liberia civil conflict. Colley recounted disturbing reports from locals, including multiple incidents of mob violence, jail break-ins, and extrajudicial killings. According to him, angry mobs have overrun police stations in some communities, taking the law into their hands due to what is described as breakdown of trust in law enforcement. In another development, the virtual Liberian journalist has for the second time responded to Montserrat County Senator Abraham Darras Dillon, describing him as sycophant. The latest war for words exchanges follows remark made by Senator Dillon, who described Colley as a blackmailer and urged government officials not to engage with media institutions that criticize the government, including those affiliated with Colley. But responding to Senator Dillon, the executive director of the Liberian Media Development Initiative accused the lawmakers of political sycophancy and abandoning his duty as senator of Montserrat County. According to Colley, Senator Dillon's political survivability is based mostly on opportunism than on genuine leadership. He claimed that his support helped alleviate Dillon's political standing, which gave him the right to hold Dillon accountable as senator of Montserrat County. He referenced the media platform Class Reloaded, emphasizing the need for Senator Dillon and other officials of government to stick to their politics other than intruding in the field of journalism. Grand Juda County Electoral District 1 Representative Jeremiah Sokon has expressed concern over what he terms as deteriorating living conditions of citizens in Grand Juda County. He appearing on OK Morning Rush, Representative Sokon named lack of basic social services such as electricity, safe drinking water, and quality educational facilities in rural parts of the county. According to Representative Sokant, many towns in the county remain without electricity, depriving residents of modern livelihood in the 21st century. The Grand Juda County lawmaker noted that children in those areas are forced to go to bed early because of the complete darkness at night. He highlighted the unsafe drinking water in the county, which he said is troubling, describing it as a serious health risk for residents. Representative Sokan stressed that several school buildings are in deplorable conditions, while many teachers work on a voluntary basis without receiving salaries monthly. The Liberal Drug Enforcement Agency in Grand Juda County Detachment is calling on citizens across the county to join them in the fight against illicit drugs abuse in the area. Speaking with reporters Tuesday in Zoechu, LDA Commander Darlington said emphasized that the fight against drugs abuse needs collective efforts for every Liberian in the country. According to CLDA in the county cannot win the battle against drug traffickers without the help of the citizens. He stressed that combating drug abuse and trafficking should be seen as a daily responsibility for all residents, adding that the fight against drug is not an easy task. He urged communities across Grand Juda County to collaborate with the law enforcement by reporting drug-related activities and raising awareness about the dangers of substance abuse. Bon County Anthony Jonathan Flomo is currently in Botswana representing Liberia at the Ministry of Justice at a high-level international law enforcement training focused on wildlife trafficking investigation. The intensive training brings together participants from over 10 African countries aiming to strengthen the capacity of law enforcement officers in combating wildlife trafficking and other forms of transitional crime. Anthony Jonathan Flomo's participation highlights Liberia's commitment to addressing illegal trafficking across its borders. Throughout the course, Anthony Flomo will gain critical skills in investigating and solving crimes related to wildlife trafficking. The program will focus on practical tools for conducting investigations, documenting findings, reporting results, and enforcing laws effectively. Upon completion of the training, Anthony Flomo is expected to share insights into Liberia's current practices in tackling illegal trafficking. He will also take on the responsibility of leading wildlife trafficking investigations, reporting on progress, and collaborating with national and international partners to strengthen law enforcement efforts in Liberia. And the United States government has released a 2024 county report on human rights practices in Liberia, saying there were no significant changes in the human rights situation in Liberia during the year. The report highlighted arbitrary or unlawful killings, torture, or cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. The U.S. statement report also spoke of arbitrary arrest of or detention, serious restrictions on freedom of expression and media freedom, including violence or threats of violence against journalists and censorship. It, however, acknowledged that the Unity Party government took steps to identify and punish officials who committed human rights abuses, including abuses committed during the country's civil war. What if you just joining us this afternoon? A reminder you're listening to King's Newsroom, the 45 minutes news presentation about Liberia, Africa, and the rest of the world. Stories we're following this afternoon. Veteran Liberian journalist John Colley accuses the Unity Party government of being insensitive in addressing security crises in rural parts of the country, says the lack of security presence in Butuo and other areas poses dangerous threats to the country. Grand Cape County resident George Usman Feka is seeking for life imprisonment for those convicted for illicit drugs with no presidential pardons or executive clemency, says the current sentencing rules somehow show weakness in the fight against drugs. Banjida County Representative Jeremiah Sokon alarms over poor living condition of citizens in rural parts of the country, says many towns and villages remain without electricity, thus depriving residents of modern livelihood in the 21st century. Away from Liberia, at least 40 people have been killed in an attack on a camp for displaced people in southern Western Darfur region, according to an aid group reports. We'll take another break and we'll come back. We'll bring you the voices of the newsmakers. On our first development here this afternoon, outgoing Chief Justice Yana Yu has urged judges, magistrates, and state prosecutors to remain diligent in discharge of their duties. In a farewell message at the August term of court opening, Justice Yu challenged the members of the legal community to always administer justice with evidence without fear or favor. She called on judges, magistrates, prosecutors, defense attorneys, and members of the legal fraternity to uphold the rule of law, resist political interference, and above all, exercise diligence in the adjudication of criminal cases.
What is happening, we have to make this adjustment. There is still a fight to go on. We have not won the war. We want our action. And I will encourage all of us as judges and magistrates and healing the Supreme Court bench to continue to push forward to win the war so that this branch of government can be truly independent and neutral. It is work at this point and at this step. I think we have the prosecution here. What can I say? I've been here for 6 years and I've always encouraged the prosecution. Do not use or fight the prosecution because they retire Liberia is talking something. Take your time, get the evidence, because we know the criminal prosecution is law takes the burden on the prosecution to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. The God is that despite that doubt, always in favor of that criminal defendant, and we are supposed to be discharged without the take your time and bring the evidence in court, because we know that if evidence moves the court to make a decision, not how much we can talk and how loud we can talk. Because like here, we can talk loudly, fast, and we know how to court points that we as the right we did or how we did on matter and communicated in the court, in the republic. So that the policy can't require the prosecution without evidence. extra evidence because the burden you need on you to stay throughout of prosecution of criminal crime. Take your time. I don't care who it is that is pushing you, whether it's the political branches or even this branch of government. Take the time because so much depends on you because you are the because of law and order in this republic.
She's outgoing Chief Justice Siana Yoda speaking. Virtual Liberian journalist and executive director of the Liberian Media Development Initiative, John Colley, had described the Unity Party government as being insensitive in addressing security crises in rural parts of the country. Appearing on True Breakfast Show Tuesday, Colley said the Liberian government insensitivity towards security in rural parts of the country, particularly in Butuo and surrounding communities such as Buayo, is a threat to the country. Colley warned that the lack of security presence in areas has created a dangerous vacuum, one increasingly being filled by mob justice and lawlessness.
The government of Liberia is not sensitive to what's happening in Butuo, Buyao, the whole area. They don't have armed security people there. I understand only 3 police people in that big place. And in Butuo. And you know the significance of Butuo? That way our rebellion was launched by Charles Taylor. How can the government of Liberia keep that place without the required number? And they got police people here with guns behind them whole day blowing siren behind my begin Red Common and where. Take some of those men, send them there. That's what the people told us there. To the extent where mob violence is on the rise in Butuo. People will go and go to a police station where they want 2 police officers, and then they take people from prison and bring them outside and kill them. A suspect. I heard that. That won't happen if you got a good deployment. Average deployment. So I want to call on Gregory. If you're listening to me, Gregory, please deploy some more people into Buyao because it's not good there. The story is bad, and I promise the people that when I come back to Monrovia, I will let all of you know. It's difficult to see them when they win. I will book an appointment with Gregory to.
He's the executive director of Liberian Media Development Initiative. In another development, the veteran Liberian journalist has for the second time responded to Monserrate County Senator Abraham Darius Dillon, describing him as sycophant. The latest word for words exchanges follow remarks made by Senator Dillon, who described Colley as a blackmailer and urged government officials not to engage with media institutions that criticize the government, including those affiliated with Colley.
Darrow would claim more relationship with Boga than me, Baza man from the other side. Of course, I'm not trying to troublize. I'm just saying, listen, closeness, I will be if I want to. I can play the same kind of sycophancy and lie down and rule under people that he's been doing for power. He's not sincere. The man was looking for power. You see him bending down to anybody now. Okay. But I'm saying the man won election. You know, see, like he can roll under my feet now, so I can go and tell his story. And you see, and I we the one made that thing. And that free money he used it to win, eating. You know, look at the other statement he's making. The people they just begging. They're begging us. And when they can't, they say they voted, but they put in vote for you. How you want it? The money you eating out of your money or our country money, all of our money, and you are entitled to it equally. You were elected. I don't envy that. My man are bigger than what you have, so I don't envy that, and I will always have it because I know how to manage it. I know how to eat kobo. I just smoke kobo the money. I'm not wasteful. People like me. The cars are around. I never bought that. So what are they vexed for? Just because we say, look, open up. So look at the young men here. These guys. More than call them and say, gentlemen, you can't cover Reloaded. You can't do our thing. I don't have any problem with Reloaded. They got it wrong. I'm saying they should not be the facilitators of Reloaded. Okay. In life, trust is a virtue. And so government is about trust. More than don't seem to, to trust anybody because they know what they do, inciting all this violence and all that. They know. So the thing everybody would do, no, John Colley is not in that business. You in power for 25 years, my man, I will live here and live very well. They are aware. Mo Ali been to my office. He knows what it looks like. Yeah. I'm sure when they took over the check, what my name were on any people in the country, I got money from Joe Weir. Go ask Joe Weir, what are you giving me money? The money Joe Weir gave, perhaps trying to support what I did was to defend their group that they, the very people supported the destruction of their property. Joe Weir gave them $1 million. I did it. So I'm urging my brothers, I don't mean any fight with any of you. I'm just saying open up the society so that, because you got to run again. If you don't do this, close to election, you will have more fight on your hand from these very journalists. The media is very difficult to fight. So that's all I'm telling them. I don't mean any harm to them.
veteran Liberian journalist and executive director of the Liberia Media Development Initiative, John Colley, speaking. Grand Jida County Electoral District 1 Representative Jeremiah Sokon has expressed concern over what he terms as deteriorating living conditions of citizens in Grand Jida County. Appearing on Orchid Morning Rush, Representative Sokon named lack of basic social services such as electricity, safe drinking water, and quality educational facilities in rural parts of the county. According to Representative Sokon, many towns in the county remain without electricity, depriving residents of modern livelihood in the 21st century.
When I talk about roads, you're talking about livings went to the other towns or other district headquarters. It's still relatively challenged, so that is key, and it impedes on farm to market, transactions. So that remains, and it's not a unique situation to change this for Grand Jida County. Yeah. The other piece is electricity. People need electricity, especially in the 21st century. People are still struggling to have access to electricity, sufficient and stable electricity to be able to meet up with the kind of lifestyle of the 21st century. So they've been challenged. We used to talk about some of these villages where the grids have not reached yet. So by 5, 6 in the night, those towns are dark, and so it kind of make young kids going in the area don't have that, that childhood experience, and people don't stay up they go to bed early. Yes, there's no nightlife, in those places, especially in the 21st century. So those are challenges to me. Of course, pipeline water, safe drinking water, all of that still remain, the challenge that still do, things that still do these people in going to District 1. And of course, job creation, investment in the area where people can be able to livelihood, if you're able to kind of earn something for themselves, that there's dignity in work and finding a job. You got young people who come from there. And with that, people are thriving, finding so many alternatives way to be able to, kind of meet their needs, So those remain that. Education is picking up because in the area, in school, or let's say in your towns, you can see relatively there's school buildings and children learning, it is one of the challenges also in our sector is the fact that a lot of volunteers, people are working and they don't get paid. They are not known, and so they continue to volunteer. But to what extent, how long can they hold on? Do you have this stable, teachers situation there? But the children are able to learn. Healthcare is also another one. It's trying to get some clinics around those areas. But these clinics also, I was in first time, somebody told me, we have this solar system is off now, and no.
He's Grand Jida County District 1 Representative Jeremiah Sokon speaking. The Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency in Grand Jida County is calling on citizens across the county to join them in the fight against illicit drugs abuse in the area. Speaking with reporters Tuesday in Zoechu, LDA Commander Darlington Say emphasized that the fight against drug abuse need collective efforts from every Liberian in the country. According to Say, LDA in the county cannot win the battle against drug traffickers without the help of the citizens.
For the campaign, it serves as an awareness in combating drugs. That is, citizens that serve are concerned about the issues of drugs in securing the future of our unborn generations and our youth as well. And so they notice that the issue of drugs is not a one-man thing. So they call upon all stakeholders, citizens, people from different backgrounds to come together to fight these substances. And they know that the DA alone is not equipped enough, for which our director, even before the process would start, we were informed from the organizations that were responsible for the campaign. And so our director gave a support to the process. Even all of our heads in Monrovia gave the full support. They were part of the process, and then citizens came together in combating drugs. That is, the fight of drugs should be a joint process by citizens and the DA themselves.
Normally, LDA Grand Jida chapter hosts musters and in line with the community of people to ensure that the work as a team, have been the activities with your master in encouraging community dwellers to form part of the fight against drugs?
Yes. That was one of the strategies that we first put into place in conscientizing citizens as to the drugs issues, making them fully be aware of the issues of drugs. It's everyone's business. They should come together to work, to know their rules, to know the rules of laws, to know how the drugs laws work, to know the effects of drugs on human bodies. And we were all going around. We went to different districts. We went to Putu, we went to Jazon, we went to Batijan, we went to Quinamo, all of the places we acquainted them on the issue of drugs. And we continue to do that so that everybody can get involved.
And that been effective?
Yeah, you're very effective. We have been receiving numerous calls. Even the people from Benin, they have self been arresting, which was spoken about during the time of our burning. They arrested and they brought a case, and the case was forwarded to court. So that's to tell you that the issues of the awareness have been.
He's Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, Grangida County Detachment Commander Darlington say they're speaking. What if folks with the time half past the hour? If you're just joining us, a reminder, you listen to the King's News Bureau, 45 minutes news presentation. Stories we're following this afternoon. Veteran Liberian journalist John Colley accuses the Unity Party government of being insensitive in addressing security crises in rural parts of the country, says the lack of security presence in Butuo and Boyayo poses dangerous threats to the country. Grand Cape County resident George Usman Feka is seeking for life imprisonment for those convicted for illicit drugs with no presidential pardons or executive clemency, says the current sentencing rules somehow show weakness in the fight against drug abuse. Grand Juda County Representative Jeremiah Sokon alarms over poor living condition of citizens in rural parts of the country, says many towns and villages remain without electricity, depriving residents of modern livelihood in the 21st century. Away from Liberia, at least 20 people have been killed in an attack on a camp for displaced people in southwestern Darfur region, according to an aid group reports. We'll take another break. When we come back, we continue with more voices. Monrovia Presbyterian School Vice Principal for Administration Rufus Torres Sam had described affordable and quality education as a means of reducing Liberia's high rate of illiteracy in the country. Speaking to King's FM Monday, Torres Sam said children as future leaders deserve a solid educational foundation to prepare them to serve the country effectively.
Yeah, I was trained from the background of the kind of teachers we recruit. Normally in Liberia, private schools don't really pay out that much salary. Majority private school, not all, but we try our best to have a good remuneration for teachers, and I wish we are using and attracting a lot of teachers because, the cost of living now is very difficult. So to have a teacher where you will be paying $50 US a month in order to, in our school, we try to certify the teachers little bit when it comes to salary at the private school level. So these are some methods and methodology we are using to attract teachers. And for school to be of excellence, it depends the number of qualified teachers, because you can get 12 grade teaching 12. We gave you chance to turn around and see how much you can pay the child or your student's school fees. Our school fees are affordable, and on the basis of that, we want for parents not only the schools to take advantage of educating the younger generation, The people are the future of the country.
He's Morovia Presbyterian School Vice Principal for Administration Rufus Toa Sam. They're speaking. The Liberia Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church has strongly condemned the attitude of some suspended members for disturbing the security officers deployed to protect the edifice of the Central Nangwe Church on 13th Street in Cinco. The acting director of communication of the church, Edwin Benson, said the attitude exhibited by some individuals at the Central Nangwe United Methodist Church is solely intended to bring the church to public ridicule. Addressing a press conference on behalf of the executive committee of the Liberia Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church, Mr. Benson said the edifice was ordered closed by the executive committee because these same individuals who converged at the church on Sunday.
The executive committee of the Liberia Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church, LAC-UMC, strongly condemns the unfortunate and unwarranted gathering and disturbance that occurred on Sunday, August 10, 2025, in front of the Spiritual Nangwe United Methodist Church in Monrovia. This latest incident occurred despite the church's temporary closure ordered by the Executive Committee on August 6, 2025, following months of escalating disruptions to worship services and sacred events, coupled with an uncooperative posture led by Mr. Kopo Toma, a suspended church lay leader, along with certain other individuals. Sunday's street disturbance in front of the closed church premises further underscores the wisdom and necessity of the closure to prevent public nuisance and to protect lives, property, and the sanctity of worship. For over 3 months, the premises of ST Nangwe UNC have been the scene of repeated acts of disorder, including the obstruction of church services and the disruption of sacred occasions such as actions have undermined the peace, unity, and spiritual discipline of that congregation that our faith calls us to uphold. Contrary to the recent social media speculation and videos circulated on TikTok and Instagram, the narratives being promoted are far from the truth, and the Liberian public should not be misled by such falsehoods. There is also speculation from a group of young people who, without fear of God or respect for Liberia's law, are spreading the false claim that the bishop of the United Methodist Church was about to officiate a marriage ceremony between same-sex couple. The Liberia Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church and the West Africa Central Conference categorically reject this falsehood.
He is the acting director of communications of the United Methodist Church, Edwin Benson. They're speaking. And away from Liberia, at least 40 people have been killed in an attack on a camp for displaced people in Sudan's Western Darfur region, according to an aid group that works there. The Abu Shak Emergency Response Room said Monday's assault was carried out by the Rapid Support Forces, RSF. The resistance committee in nearby El Fasher city, made up of local citizens and activists, also reported this. El Fasher, which came under intense attack as well, is the last major foothold in Darfur for the army and its allies, which have been fighting the paramilitary RSF in the 2-year civil war. The conflict has triggered a humanitarian crisis, with the UN warning that families trapped in the besieged city face starvation. Sudanese media reported that the camp was caught in the crossfire of the fighting in El Fasher, but the aid group inside Abu Shak, where at least 200,000 people live, says some of those killed in the attack were shot in their homes, while others were gunned down in the public. On that note, this is how we would like to go home this afternoon on King's Newsroom, a 45 minutes news presentation about Liberia, Africa, and the rest of the world. But just before we go home this afternoon, let's remind you of stories we've been following. Virtual Liberian journalist John Colley accuses the United Party government of being sensitive in addressing security crises in rural parts of the country. Says the lack of security presence in Butu and other parts poses dangerous threats to the country. Grand Cape Man County resident George Usman Feka is seeking for life imprisonment for those convicted for illicit drugs with no presidential pardons. On executive clemency says the current sentencing rules somehow show weakness in the fight against drug abuse. Grand Juda County Representative Jeremiah Sokon alarms over poor living conditions of citizens in rural parts of the country. Says many towns and villages remain without electricity, depriving residents of modern livelihood in the 21st century. Away from Liberia, at least 40 people have been killed in an attack on account for displaced people in Softon, Western Darfur region, according to an A group reports. These are stories we follow here this afternoon on King's Newsroom. I would like to say many thanks to all of our reporters, correspondents, news editors who helped in making this package. Our sources, Jenna Pessiman, Sada controls and coordinated the sounds. I would like to say many thanks to the entire management team for this splendid presentation of the program. Better still join us this evening at 1 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, at which time we'll be here with another edition of the program King's News. But thanks for listening and watching. My name is Newton Topa Power.